Ready. Good. You want me to be mine? Want to use your one?
Yeah, we're going to use it only because that's where the recording happening.
All right. That was good.
So, Chris, please introduce yourself.
Yep. Awesome. All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Chris Gruhl. I am the Distinguished Solutions Architect for Oasis. I have been at Oasis a little over 3 weeks, a little under 3 weeks, somewhere in that range. So I'm brand new, but I'm really, really excited about this. So I'm like, begged them, please let me talk about this because, like, seriously, this is some really cool stuff. Before that, though, I was at Achilles. Anybody who's heard secrets management, SaaS, Achilles, it's a very good solution. I'm a big fan of secrets management, especially, SaaS-based secrets management. It's really good. But part of the reason I went somewhere else, went to Oasis, is that secrets management solutions are great. What they don't have is the context, right? They don't have all the context they need to truly cover every aspect of a credential, of an identity, of, things that people need to do. Now, before I get into the work stuff, I'll talk a little bit about personal. So I have a wife, I have two daughters, two sons. We play social deception games like Among Us, Blood on the Clock Tower, stuff like that. We also have our Minecraft server because, it's awesome. Now I had asked my 10-year-old, I was like, can you give me like a drawing of everybody and just to kind of like show like this is the family, but without an actual picture. Let's just like have a drawing. And unfortunately, 2 days ago, she broke her hand to get out of drawing my picture, obviously. But it's okay. It's okay. We're all right. I ended up just asking ChatGPT. And so it did. It created something kind of that looks nothing like us. That's like the 10th iteration too. Yeah, AI is not going to take all our jobs right away, I promise. Now, let's talk a little bit about my corporate experience, right? Because that's kind of relevant here. I was staff software engineer at the Home Depot for almost 14 years. I lived through digital transformation, migration to the cloud, containerization, lots of that stuff, right? And the reason I'm bringing this up especially is because in about 2019, I tried to convince my boss. I'm like, look, we need a way to tell who owns what, right? Ownership, application ownership. The problem is that has anyone ever had a CMDB that was up to date and actually kept up to date? Yeah, laughs exactly, right? Yeah. And so we're designing, we're like, look, let's have this thing kind of be automated, right? We're tie into Slack and see where people are talking about apps, and then we'll go do research at that time as maybe a scalable solution. In 2019, this was way before Gen AI. Well, before ChatGPT, right? Well, it's not really before Gen AI, but you get the idea, right? And so the problem was that, like, because of that, we had to tie into all the different systems, and it ended up being something like this. I mean, everybody has seen this. I'm assuming at some point, right? You're saying, yeah, I mean, this is crazy. There's so much differences out there. Let's go ahead and create a standard for everybody so that everything is great. Except now you've got 15 standards, right? And that's how it kind of is, right? You need to have, if you're gonna have something that's connected into a bunch of things, you can't do a migration. At least that's what I believe, right? And it turns out Oasis kind of believes that too. So we're talking today about some of the things like we didn't have Gen AI. We were trying to tie into legacy systems. We're calling different APIs. We're trying to tie into Slack and make it so that it auto learns a little bit, right? And make it so that it can handle these things. But we had a team of like 7 people. We had a product manager, we had our several developers. We had like it was a big old team that we're trying to do all this, and we spent like 6 months and we just gave up. It was too hard. It really was too hard. We couldn't do it to the level that we needed it to be. And the thing is, if we had had something like this, I'd have been, it would have been done. It would have been done immediately. So that's why I got really excited about this, right? Because people don't think about, non-human identity, especially, it's like, oh, that's just service account, right? Or something like that. It's just a service account. Okay, sure. But if you really think about it, it's actually a lot more than that. Just one single app. Let's talk about just a fictional app, okay? This is a Kubernetes app, okay? This Kubernetes app, it needs to connect to the cloud. It needs to connect to like an S3 bucket and push files up there. It also needs to connect to a database, okay? Now, what's all involved in that? Well, if you think about it, right? You've got a developer and they need to push code up and they push it up to the repo, and then the CI/CD catches that, and the CI/CD says, oh, we need to deploy this. And so the CI/CD is going to take that app, it's going to build a container image. What does it do with that container image? It's going to push that up to container registry, which means there it needs a credential. It needs some sort of authentication of the container registry. So it can push that up there. It needs to have rights, role-based access control to push that up there. So does the Kubernetes cluster. It needs to have the ability to pull that down. And so you have another identity here. And then you need to have that Kubernetes app, right? We're not even to the point where we're deploying it yet. But now that we've deployed it, it has a Kubernetes service account. That service account has role-based access control, what it's allowed to do, what things it's allowed, what secrets it's allowed, things like that, right? And we're at what, two identities there, three identities if you include the CI/CD as well. Okay, now we have the app itself. We said it needs to upload to S3, to an S3 bucket, right? Which is AWS. So it needs to have cloud credentials. Okay, we need to get cloud credentials in there. We need to rotate those cloud credentials. It needs to have role-based access control to be able to push stuff into that bucket. We've got another identity right there. Oh, we said it needs to also talk to this database. That's another identity right there. It needs to have credentials, and it needs to have the ability to rotate that credential, right, into that database, because you can't just have a database that's just never changing its credentials. You need to do rotation. What's the standard? 90 days, right? Hopefully. Right? So at this point, we're at like what, 5 different credentials, right? With different non-human identities, all just so that we can make the thing work, right? They're all tied together. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about service accounts. We're talking about service principals. We're talking about access keys, applications, database users, literally everything. And what Oasis has done is we've created this language, right? And we'll show a little bit more about this language, but it's a way to describe what a non-human identity is. And keep in mind, I'm 3 weeks in, so I've got some backup in case I'm forgetting certain things, right? But the thing is, all of you have seen this, right? Not necessarily this graph. I'm talking about reality that this represents, right? As we're getting more and more, and we're getting into automation and cloud IT and AI Gen, we're creating more and more and more and more identities, right? Are we keeping track of them, right? Or does an identity that's created by a developer 3 months later when they leave, who knows about that? Who owns it, right? Those are the types of things that Oasis was purpose-built for. Now, what sets them apart is this whole see, secure, govern thing, right? So we're saying, as I talked about before, what we wanted to try and do at the Home Depot was have the context. You didn't have the context. It wasn't as easy to get. It's a lot easier with Oasis because, especially in the cloud environment, we can connect service accounts that we own with service accounts that the customer owns and tie in and get all of that log data for all the different cloud providers. Everything, right? All the different cloud providers, and add all that together. Oh, not just the cloud providers, right? A lot of other tools out there, they'll also just get the cloud providers. No. We're going to get the cloud providers, and we're going to get on-prem Active Directory. And we're going to tie into Okta. We're going to tie into ServiceNow. We're going to tie into literally everything that's out there, because that's the key, is to get as much context as possible. because when you have enough context, you can do some really amazing things, right? You can do safe, guided, automated remediation. Crazy, right? And we'll talk about that in a little bit. We can also govern. We can actually have set policies. And the point of all of this is to say, hey, you know what? Don't migrate your entire enterprise to this other solution so that it can manage everything that it controls. Instead, say, look, whatever you're using, whatever secrets management tool, whatever identity, IAM tool, whatever thing you're using, we'll tie into that. And we'll add all of that information into our giant cloud magic database, data lake, right? And then do a whole bunch of context matching graph stuff that's really, really awesome. And that gives us the ability to say, hey, you know what? Now we can create policies. And we can say, hey, of all these service accounts, right? We can see it first. That's the key. We want to see, here's what the current scope of the world is. And now we can say, okay, of the current scope of the world, now let's fix these really bad ones, because holy, that's like, oh my gosh, this one is like admin access. Like we should do something about this. Nobody's touched it in like 6 months, but it's admin access, right? Things like that, right? Prioritization, right? And the ability to do automatic rotations. We'll get into that a little bit. This slide, yeah, it looks a little scary, but really it's just the point of it is to say what we're connecting to cloud, we're connecting to on-prem, we're connecting to identity providers, we're connecting to SaaS. We are connecting to all the things out there that any company wants to use because every bit of it gives us context, right? And once you have enough context, you can do a lot of really interesting things. We can say, we can do things like, hey, we're going to do, NHI access with PII across multiple clouds. We can actually do that because we'll have context into this cloud and context in this cloud and see which developer logged into this cloud and then change this secret or change this service account, service principal, whatever, right? So let's take a look at the platform real quick. So I'm going to log in here. We should still be able to see my screen. Yep. All right. Now, so this is Oasis. This is our demo environment, right? But you get the idea here. The point of this is this nice little demo, this little dashboard telling you what's most important, right? And we're doing that based on our issues, top assets at risk, and we're doing it based on all of these policies. And you'll see here, there's a lot of policies that most organizations are very, very interested in, like something's about to expire. We've actually gone in, done a POV for a prospect and been like, just so you know, there's a Amazon or an Azure Service Principal credential that's going to expire in a week. You should probably do something about that because we're seeing that applications are actively using it. And they're like, okay, thanks. And then sure enough, a week later, it died. But they were able to remediate it real quick because they knew about it, right? Things like that. Things like least privilege, right? Does an app that only pushes to an S3 bucket really need full access to everything about it? Probably not. Does stale identities, right? These things, stale identities seem like it's, yeah, nobody's touched it, right? What was there was I love this slide. I talk back to it, right? Is this one right here, Cloudflare, right? My colleague here was telling me about this Cloudflare breach, right? How many was it? 5,000 credentials? Yeah. So they had 5,000 service account credentials, but just four of them were never being used. They're like, no one's used these. They still left those. Those were the ones that got breached. Yeah, because whether you use it or not is not the most critical thing. It's whether or not it has all the access, right? If it's authorized to do some really crazy stuff and nobody's used it, why is it still there? Right? And that's what we want to do is want to bring a spotlight on that, right? Now, so let's take a look in here. This is one of the things I really love in here is the inventory, right? Because why? Why is this awesome? Well, the thing is, I told you about before, ownership, right? Ownership is hard to do. It really is really hard to do unless you have a ton of context. Well, that's where we come in. We have a ton of context. Remember, we're tying into all the different types of systems. So if I go into here, I've got 2 AWS connections, 3 Azure connections, 1 GCP. I got tying into Okta, tying into Active Directory, tying into like a bunch of different things, HashiCorp Vault, Azure Key Vault, tons and tons of different things to get that context. And then once we have that context, we can do some really cool things. We could say, hey, here's the Azure Service Principal, right? Now, let's take a look at this Azure Service Principal, and we can see this really cool column here. I don't know if you guys caught this off the bat, but the first time I saw this demo, I was like, owners? What now? Because some of these, it's saying, yeah, this is the owner, right? This Eric McDonald user was manually added as an owner, but some of these, it's doing a little suggestion thing. It's saying, hey, Maurice Weiss, yeah, always detected that the identity and the user signed in to the same machine. I mean, that's at least a bit better than I got no freaking idea who owns it, right? We're starting down that path. Or down here, we're saying, hey, you know what? This service principal, we've got 3 different users in here. One of them, said that this user is listed in Azure as the owner of the application associated with the service principal. This one, this group appeared in a field that of this identity that may be related to ownership. And this one, this user assigned a role to this service principal. I mean, if somebody's assigning a role to it, it means they know something. They've got some bit of extra context. And so that's the idea. These suggestions, you can tie them in and you can make them real and you can have it so that it's an automated process that's keeping up with that. That's really cool. I love that. Let's take a look at some of the details. Now, this part right here is one of my favorites, right? Is the fact that not only are we seeing this inventory in here, but we're actually getting really deep into this. Hold on. This one's actually a little bit, it's a bit busy here, but let's talk about what's going on in here, because what we're actually doing is we're using detailed information from, I believe it's what it's like Defender or something like that. Yeah, Defender, Microsoft Defender, to actually get the process that's running on here. And then that process is reading this password or using this password. So we've got consumers, the thing that's using a credential or secret, the secret, and the identity. Notice I've got 2 identities here. Why do I have 2? Because I actually have an AD service account that is on-prem AD service account, and it's synced to an Azure AD user, right? Sometimes you think that's not being used, that one thing's not being used. Nobody's touched the on-prem service account, but it's synced up to the cloud. And if there's processes in the cloud using it, you want to know that. Because if you kill the on-prem one, you also kill the cloud one. They're synced, right? So making that visible, making that aware is something that's really, really important. And that's the context we're building here. We're giving you the ability to see consumers, secrets, the actual identities themselves, and the resources. Resources would be like the role-based access control that the identity is allowed to do, right? And what you can see in here is the actual path of these secrets, right? This consumer is using this secret to log into this service account to do these things. Or this one, or that it has access to do these things, right? Or vice versa. Now, another one, especially in the cloud environment that I really, really like, is something like this to say, hey, you know what? We've got here's an example, right? And this is, come on, this is really common, right? To say, hey, you know what? We've got 4 EC2 instances. They are using an Azure Service Principal secret. They are then logging into Azure and then connecting up to an Azure Storage blob. Okay. Now, the problem is this Azure Service Principal has not been rotated. we can see right here, we've got a rotation. We've got it saying it hasn't been rotated. So what do we want to do? We want to fix that. Well, if we look back what we talked about way back over here in our presentation, right? We want to see, we want to secure, and we want to govern. Okay, so we see here that these instances were the ones that accessed that secret. We see here that this secret hasn't been updated in more than 90 days, and we set a policy saying you should rotate the credentials every 90 days, or they can adjust it to whatever the company's number is, right? And so from there, you say, okay, great. I want to take care of that. That's not a great thing. So what do we have here? We've got a manual instructions. We could say here, generate and store a new secret, update the identity application owner, track rotation progress, and deactivate the old secret. Sure, that's what most tools will do. Or we say, hey, you know what? Here, click here. Here's how you can fix it. Well, we know this is an Azure, or this is an Azure credential that is in AWS. So if we want to fix this, we probably should put it in AWS Secrets Manager. So we'll put in AWS Secrets Manager and we'll click Generate and Store Secret. So now we have a new secret. And that secret exists on the graph. There it is right there. And that's great. That's awesome. That's only part of it. Because if you just do that, if you just create the new secret and toss it over the fence to the developer and say, good luck, let us know how it works out. We gave you everything you need. What are they going to do? Nothing, right? Because what we need to do is we need to validate that it's safe to actually delete the old one. Because that's the context that I'm talking about. That's the information that we need. We need to be able to say, are they actually done using that? Have they done the migration? Is it safe for us to move? Right? See, secure, govern. And so having that context of knowing that all these apps, right, all these instances of the application are using the new secret, you'll see the little thing come in here, right? You'll say this thing will stop having that tie into there. And maybe I want to say, come in here and say, look at the timeline beta, right? And I could see where it was created, where it was, the different secrets were created, all the different things that happen inside the graph. All of that is great. I can even come in here and say, yeah, you know what? We're going to tie it to this person here and this person here because they're the ones who own that. Fantastic. We're done with assigning ownership. And now we're just going to rotate. We're going to track the rotation progress. We're going to wait. We're going to wait until they're done with it to show that that all these instances have been migrated and copied over. Now that is really nice. I like that. But what makes it even better is this. Let's automate that entire process. Let's set the ownership. Let's set the place where we want those secrets to go and have Oasis manage it all. Oasis watches. It says, has it been rotated? Yes, great. Let's wait a month. You see nobody's using the old credential? Fantastic. Let's kill the old credential. Automatically. Nobody has to worry about it. It's just happening. That's what we want. We want it to be as automated as possible, right? And then once you do that, once you have that tracking in there, you have that automated rotation, you just add it to the list of all the automated rotations that you have. All the different service counts, all the different AWS service counts, Azure service principals, IAM users, everything. Just automatically rotated, stored into a vault. A vault, not the vault, right? We're not saying you must use this vault. No, whatever you're using, we want to increase the utilization of what you're already using.
You have connections to
CyberArk, yep. HashiCorp Vault, all the cloud vaults, and we're adding more and more. Really, whatever the customer needs for us to do, because that's how we built it. We want it to be extensible.
The credentials on the system and example. So how do you store the credentials?
Yeah, so that's a great question. We are a SaaS. We do not want the credentials, right? And so if you see, I didn't show it on the page here, but I'm going to come in here and go to somewhere like here, we could see our credential. Where is it? Here, leaked credentials, unrotated service account. Hold on, let me get to identities, service principal. Yeah, here's an example. Unrotated service principal. Right. So if I go to one click and I go to create the generate and the store the secret, on the automated retention is it says up in the top right hand corner of through the outpost. Okay. That's what I was trying to show on the screen, but I'm not familiar enough to find the exact spot, but it's all right. The point is the outpost is a piece of software that you put in your environment that thing is the thing that manages secrets, right? So that we as Oasis do not have access to your secrets. We do not want to have access to your secrets, but we do want it to help you orchestrate that. And that's where that comes in.
Your workflow, will it allow a seamless experience where it launches a session by checking that credentials and launching the session for you?
So it's a little bit, that's a great question. So it's a little bit different than that. It's simply that we just orchestrate everything inside the vault where the secrets live.
Yeah.
So we're not like an IDP, we're not going to store any of that data.
Okay.
And so to what?
Yeah, so if the user needs to use, we have to go check out the ID, go put it in a different console, then log in.
No, and so we're not like a vault. So
Yeah, we're not
the
vault.
application will continue to work like it normally does today. What we're going to do is monitor all of those identities that are in those disparate vaults. And so instead of, we realized early on, like if we were to try and do a consolidation effort to say, hey, you've got like 10 different vaults, now you want to use one, like that project never completes into it's super difficult.
Yeah.
And then you're getting into all of your developers and you're saying, hey, now you have to change all your code and go use this vault over here that we standardized on. So instead of doing that, we're just going to say, hey, keep using your Key Vault in AWS and keep using your KVM in Azure, keep using your API Gateway Key Store, whatever it is. And we're going to combine all that so that you can do what he's showing here, which is to manage all of those keys, secrets, tokens without changing any of your current processes. So think of it as just like a central console, a unified inventory to manage your distributed environment.
So you provide an inventory, but you don't provide kind of like just-in-time access on.
No.
Yeah, so we're not what's today's date? If you pay attention to LinkedIn on the first day of RSA, then I can answer that question. In the affirmative, but my VP of marketing
Got it.
would roast me if I was to
Yeah.
spill the beans.
It's something.
So-
I guess.
So from an Oasis perspective, we manage the complete life cycle up until provisioning. And then that piece will be completed on Monday.
Got it.
So
We could be here. Could be.
it could be,
Yeah,
it could be.
So it's being recorded, so you may want to.
See,
Yeah,
might happen.
I may or may not have a t-shirt that says just provisioning.
Who knows?
Yeah,
We'll
who
see.
knows?
We'll see.
Who knows? But that's a great point, and that's so like to kind of to close on that topic there, right? So for the longest time, we're all familiar with identity lifecycle management for human accounts. I started off my career back in too long ago, back when it was like 80 bridge stuff, right? So we would take, we would add Red Hat machines to the AD directory and all that kind of stuff and manage them there. And for the longest time, that lifecycle management existed for us. But so lifecycle management for non-human identities is where we're at now today. And so completing that case, that same type of management is what we need.
Yep.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
When y'all are saying non-human identity, is that including like someone's creating an AI agent? Like, is that referring to just like any application that can take action? Or is that referring to like just the credentials?
All of the above.
Yeah,
Okay.
all the above. Anything that fits into this language
Okay.
of a consumer, a secret, an identity, which has resource access,
Okay,
right?
So I really like to think of it as like a non-interactive login.
Mm-hmm.
How
Yeah.
do you authenticate somebody without a keyboard and a mouse?
Right.
That's an NHI.
No,
Yeah,
and there's a lot of them.
with your thumb.
Thumbs.
Yeah,
Is that one of the two factors or one factor?
yeah, I mean, potentially.
How are you gathering all this data? Like, are you like running a agent on each server or like a proxy or a sidecar or?
Yeah, that's a great question. By
Easier than that.
default, we are not, we do mostly agentless, almost entirely agentless.
Yeah, so just think of like audit logs.
Yeah.
So the World Active Directory, we get Windows event logs. So
Yep.
that gives us everything. So everything that we want we would get from read access. And it's not so much about like how Oasis does it. Like that's just how it should be done. So we definitely want to get out of like the whole agent. And so by getting that too, it's near real time. So without being in line, without impacting everything, we can get near real time. If you create a new secret, a new service principal, 3 to 4 minutes, it'll be in the inventory.
But you need to have some kind of access to getting those credentials, non-human credentials. For example, if you take a Kubernetes secrets,
Mhm.
it needs a cluster admin to get the secrets,
Mhm.
your cube admin or cube CFF.
Yeah, so there are some different use cases. So like Kubernetes is a key example where you would need some elevated permissions. If we're just talking like, I wanted to see all my secrets are in Azure, AWS, GCP, which is like, really, that's like 80% what we kind of find is where we start with. Then from there, it's just read access to like CloudTrail.
So, yeah, we have a case where now SaaS applications are actually hybrid cloud applications. We have on-prem as well as a cloud component.
Mhm.
The secrets are stored here and there.
Yeah.
Does
Yeah,
it
yeah.
work?
So do you want to go back to that RPA prod? I think that would be a
Yeah.
good one.
Absolutely.
So this is some secret sauce, I would say, to what Oasis has. In that we are able to say, okay, yeah, you have, and one thing to focus on here, we've taken the approach being identity centric. Not all of the NHI tools have taken that approach, but when we say identity centric, identity here, if you're going from left to right, is the third column in this graph. And so by being identity centric, we are looking for, like in this case, RPA prod is an on-prem Active Directory account, and it has a corresponding Entra ID in Azure Cloud. And this is extremely common when we see migrations happening or people that have AD Connect in place, right? And they're syncing these accounts across the board. A lot of our competitors will treat this as a single identity. They're not going to give you a single dashboard to say, hey, this is where the identity is used across your infrastructure. And why that's important is because we have different users using different secrets to access that same account in different repositories. And this is actually a case here where we could not auto rotate this credential. If we change the credential in one of these repositories and the sync was on, then the right hand's going to break. Right? You're going to cut off your right hand because you changed the password on the left hand. And these are things right here where like we refer to it as the screen test, right? You just kind of cross your fingers and hope the applications don't go down because we had to rotate the secret, right? And so this is a key view, and it's kind of what you're talking about there, right? If we've got these different credentials in different locations,
Yeah,
on-prem,
we have a shared
cloud.
credentials on the hybrid cloud where exactly we pulled on Delinea.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
Delinea, right? And we have a SaaS credentials, non-human identities are closed to AWS Secrets Manager as well as Kubernetes secrets because it's automatically fetched on the runtime. And yeah, I don't know how exactly you guys are getting it from hybrid cloud environments, all the non-human secrets.
So we just look to tie in, there's a couple of different ways that we get it. So it's like usually it's like a deeper question and answer session, how you're actually doing it. But a lot of the on-prem stuff still ties into on-prem Active Directory. Like that's still their user
We don't.
repository. But it could be that,
Non-human, no.
and that's fine. I mean, if it's the Delinea Vault, then we attach to the Delinea Vault, just like we attach to CyberArk's Vault. So we can pull that information from there and tell you where it's all at. So we would connect to like an on-prem vault, and we would connect to your cloud environment. And all of that is correlated into that single view that you have there.
Question.
Yeah.
Mhm.
This is almost a KMS to me.
Yeah, sounds good.
We'll know, whatever. But I think the point is that I'm trying to make is that I understand, like, how the vaults are with side things managed, which is what the presentation was about. But is there any like network area requirement that you guys have, like, for example, something sort of Azure Express route? If you like, if you have that get going on the network, the solution works better, or have you tried multiple different cloud providers? Does one solution work better than other for you?
Great question. So we don't require, we've seen internet access. It's not like it's not like an inline tool, and we're not backhauling massive amounts of data to where the express route.
So an IPsec will just work.
Yeah. We just need HTTPS, coming out to us. For the most part, like we're talking about just metadata that we're pulling out of the logs. There is one thing here that I will tout that I like talking about, because this is unique to Oasis's approach here. And when we talk about rotation, there's two different types of permissions, right? 90% of what we need is just read. We just need to read the logs, get the data, we give it all to you here. But now if we do want to take an action, now we need some meat. We need to rotate, we need write permissions to evolve. And right now, Oasis is the only tool that offers what Chris responded to as Outpost. And so this Outpost component is a Kubernetes pod that would live in your AWS account, in your Azure subscription. And you're assigning the write permissions to that Kubernetes pod. And that way you don't have to give write permissions to external IP addresses to your key vault, which I've yet to find a cloud network admin go, oh yay, right? Like that's a change request that you have to really ask for. And so by providing this mechanism where we can have the permissions to a Kubernetes pod that sits over here, that's in a different network segment that allows us to get read access to, we don't have to get read access to the crown jewels where the actual secrets and keys live. And so we do have some, financial institutions where that changed the game for them. It's a much easier request than here's 4 IP addresses and make me an admin in your SQL. Yeah. So do keep in mind that, like, those are some key things to think about when you're talking about, like, how is a SaaS provider going to manage my key rotation for me? Because now I have to open up those permissions to the external world to that SaaS provider. So that's a key consideration to consider. And just to what Chris is talking about here, I just want to double click on everything he said about ownership is super key. Chris's experience at Home Depot, where he spent months trying to identify who owns these applications and who owns these secrets is, we're on calls every week with customers who have just thrown up their hands. Like they're so far behind the 8 ball. They have so many service principles and so many secrets in their key vault with people that have left years ago that they have no idea who owns these. And usually it defaults to the security team, and then they spend months or weeks in Slack channels just asking somebody. They don't even ask them if they are the owner. They just ask them, can you please own this? Can you just be responsible for it? And we're already responsible for enough stuff, so nobody says yes. So like that piece right there, we've seen customers just save months of work by us just suggesting, hey, this is who the owner is. So it's a really key thing. And the rest of everything else that happens in the platform really runs off of that. Because when you're going to go rotate something, now at least you have a sense of who you can at least go tell, hey, I'm going to rotate this key for you, or I'm going to decommission this damn account that hasn't been touched. And like our running joke at Oasis is we find accounts that are old enough to drink that haven't been rotated. Like domain admins that I think literally are some of the first domain admins ever created and active, like 2000. If we come across domain accounts, domain admin permissions from 2000 on accounts that haven't been used in like 10,000 days. It's like something stupid. So it's things like that, that just because if I was to go in and change that service principal password, like, how do I know it's not gonna break? Right, like, what's gonna break? It hasn't been touched for 15 years. It must be running something important, you know?
Question. So, the RDP chart, the password, can the user can see the password in there?
No.
So, when coming to security, tool creep is one of the biggest problems nowadays in the industry.
Mhm.
So CyberArk acquired Venafi last year to involve the NHI part, and the Savient also has the NHI and lifecycle management for NHI as well. So from a company perspective, if I already have a tool which already does the NHI and has the full lifecycle of it, and it protects all the NHI passwords, why would I add another tool which kind of increases the attack surface?
I understand what you're saying. And so first off, Venafi is a unique case. So Venafi takes on PKI certificates, more like web certificates. We may or may not take that on. So if you want something to tell you, hey, the SSL certificate on my website is going to expire in a week, that's Venafi. And they do a great job with that. So definitely go and use them for that. If you're like, you know, hey, the secret I have on this identity is going to expire in 2 weeks, then that's us. So that's kind of the difference I see between Venafi and us. That's pretty good there. Savient, you know, maybe we can dive in deeper on that, but I've yet to see them be a pure play NHI lifecycle management.
True, but the point is that if I have a tool which does the identity management and the NHI also takes care of NHI, then why would I add another tool which would definitely increase my attack?
Well, if you have an NHI solution, you shouldn't buy Oasis.
Yeah.
Right. You already have it covered. Yeah, you don't need to buy a second tool.
No, I mean, true, that is true, but if most of the IDP the IAM tools
Mhm.
is kind of including it, then it kind of be.
So it's definitely the where all the cool kids sit. It's like the cool kid table lately where everybody wants to have NHI. Like me and Chris were just sitting at dinner earlier and we saw another tool come out and said that they did NHI where before they were like a secret scanner or something. So there is that. There's a lot of movement around this space, and it's just because it highlights the growing problem people have in it. And to our counseling intern, I forget your name, Emily.
Yeah.
So like to Emily's point, like with all of the AI that we see out there now, it's just another reason because it increases the non-human identities that AIs need to get access to the data and how all that works. And if you're familiar with like the MCP protocol that's coming out now, even more there, we see more and more, we're just gonna see more and more of the NHI space come out around AIs. And so it's just gonna continue to grow and we'll see additional vendors continue to come in and say they do it in some unique way.
So how much of the state do you store on the ongoing basis? Do you maintain a database or something to maintain the state?
Good question. Absolutely. Yeah, so absolutely maintain the state. Did you talk about that little monitoring?
The what?
The monitoring piece in the graph?
Monitoring piece? No, I don't think so.
So, yeah, go ahead and open up the RPA prod again.
Okay.
So yeah, so to your point, you know, it's near real time. And this is something I feel here in our screenshot here that we could probably make stand out a little more in the graph. So all it is a simple red line from UiPath to the RPA prod password. The simple red line. But that is actually live monitoring how that UiPath is leveraging and accessing that RPA prod secret and identity. So throughout all of this, once we capture that intelligence, we begin to baseline the usage of these non-human entities. Who accesses them? How are they accessed? What type of, you know, login rate do they have? Everything that you could think about that you would see in like a brute forcing or credential stuffing type usage on a login page, we apply that same intelligence in the non-human identity space. So maybe go into where it says all issues or ITDR. Yeah, that's exactly where I was going to go. So we have here an identity threat detection and response module for non-human entities. And let me find the one, there should, API demo. There should be like a, API server demo.com, right there, yep, perfect. We need to make sure all of these stay in the same order, otherwise we'll just go. So one thing that we've added here is we've looked across our customer base. And we've looked across all the behavior of these login attributes. And we said, oh, okay, here is actually a common threat actor that we've seen across our customers. And it's to the point that we have a reputation score. We've given this a name here, Black Mesa. We track all the different failed logins from this threat actor. And go ahead and click on the, let's take them, yep, right there. And so it's gotten to the point that we've created our own non-human identity threat center, where we've categorized a number of these threat actor groups that have specifically focused on non-human identities. And so this is kind of like the next step here. So when we're talking about, are we monitoring the usage 100% and 100%? And what was interesting around this was not something that Oasis was going to do. We were like, we're going to do non-human identities. We're going to rotate passwords and secrets. But as our customer base grew and we started to see these like invalid logins, right, show up in the logs, we started to see identities that, you know, this identity is always accessed by these EC2 instances. Why now do I have an IP address from China trying to log in with this secret identity into my application, right? It's like, wait a second. So we just over time, as our own intelligence grew around our customer data, we started to see these threat actors just showing up in the logs, and well, now you have the threat center because of it. So yeah. So stuff like that's super interesting. This was something that we pushed out, went live with in January, and yeah, all of this feeds into the criticality then that you'll see in the platform. So if you're being attacked, you'll know it.
So whatever eventual way, like you're using to store this current, like you are going to be encrypting it at rest. So when you do that encryption, can those keys be encrypted with the customer keys so that the customer has full control of the data?
Yeah, so great question. And that's why when we do the key rotation, we are adhering to the policies that are applied in the vault. So wherever we rotate the key, it's just going to rotate the key according to the security policy you have in Azure or AWS Secret Manager. So whatever you configure there, we're using that same encryption strength and all
So
that.
it can be, so keys can be, so I can store my keys. So I'm like, okay, I want to make like a random startup and I'm going to use Oasis for storing all my credits.
Okay, great question. So no,
Right.
we don't store the key.
Yeah.
Great question. So what we would say is store the key in AWS Key Vault, but manage it with Oasis. That's what we would do.
So even if the Oasis is compromised or anything, they won't be able to.
Yeah,
We don't store anything.
Right.
Yeah.
We just interact with your secrets
Yeah.
management solution.
Right? Like if you're looking at like, you know, like, cause like, I mean, honestly, because vaults have been around for a while, you got a hashy vault, right? I mean, a keyless could be your vault. So you go use one of those to sort of be your repository, but then we'll manage it. And that's why, like, I mean, honestly, if we get down into it, the best part for us is people that have multiple vaults.
Yeah.
So if you have multiple vaults, then you
I mean, as a one customer can have multiple ones from different products for different, cloud providers. So
if you have 10 developers, you probably have 10 different vaults.
Different business units.
Yeah, if you got 10 developers, you're probably looking at 10 vaults.
Also think mergers and acquisitions, like with this company that we just bought, they're using all HashiCorp. This company that we just bought, they're using all AWS Secrets Manager, right? Did you have a question?
Oh, yeah, I'm curious. Do any of your clients currently use like zero knowledge proofs as their method instead of actually passing a credential?
It's a great question. Probably.
Probably.
We're on the edge of it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure who's there yet.
I mean, and if you're talking about like, are any customers using passwordless stuff?
You know?
Some are trying to get there. I still think we're a few years away from where we'll have, like where everything will be created when it needs to be used and then decommissioned as soon as it's used. Right? Like that kind of stuff. So like nothing lives longer than 10 minutes. We're a little ways away before that gets to be mainstream, yes.
I'm a student, so I don't have all the knowledge that everyone else does. But why, if someone's coming on out looking for an NHI, SaaS platform, why should they go with Oasis and not a competitor's, option?
Does anyone even do this left-hand side? I mean, I don't work in this space, but I'm working with customers and looking at their stuff that they have. I've never seen that side of things.
So
She just answered your
She's
question. Just answered your question, right? Yeah, seriously.
So basically asking you trade secret. What's
Right.
the-
Yeah, I mean, it all comes down to having the context, having a data lake, gathering all the information of everything you have, which is one part, which is honestly not the hardest part. The hardest part is the correlation. Anybody who's dove through Azure logs knows it ain't easy, right? And to do it at scale, at enterprise scale, is even harder. And that's what Oasis does.
yeah, so to her point, like the graph approach here has been copied by everybody else. We were the first ones to come out with this when we went GA about 18 months ago. But nobody has all four of these pillars here. So some will have, hey, we can see that this secret is being used by these consumers. Okay, great, but what resources does it have? Well, they're not there yet. And other people might have, oh, here's the identity and it has these resources, but they won't see who's using it. And so we've yet to find anybody else yet who's come up with all four of these different columns, if you will.
From a business perspective, do you think part of Oasis strategy is being an early mover, like how like obviously Okta is very established in the human identity and now they're like adding on. Do you think is that part of the strategy that like you're an early mover and like you're focusing?
So right now we're
solely
the
on-
only patented NHI tool.
Okay,
And there's another company out there, Asterix, who technically was GA 6 months before we were, but early mover for sure.
yeah. Well, and this is solely what you focus on, right? Is not human
Correct.
versus like,
Correct.
I don't know. I mean, it seems unlikely Okta would start putting the same amount of resources into non-human since they're like the leader.
correct.
This whole platform is purpose built for this.
Yeah,
Right?
not like an add-on.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like an add-on, exactly.
Yeah,
And that's the key part here.
yeah.
So it's interesting that you guys are in this space of non-human identity, like looking at how chat, AI chatbot agents are moving into systems. You are managing those apps with customers and you're gonna use that data for profiling threat actors. So two questions there. One, what is your strategy for like profiling, right? Because this is an interesting new data space that you're gonna be in. Like, are you gonna be like, okay, so dark web informer, like they always get insights starting by social engineering hacks. Like, is that level of profiling, is that what you're doing, or like?
Actually, it is. So we don't do it though. We do use, we get a third-party data feed though that looks at the identity and will alert you if that identity exists in a known breach.
Okay, and say that you do these profilings, will you ever make it open source?
Sorry?
Say that you do these profilings
Mhm.
and you find multiple threat actors and
I
they
do.
usually follow a pattern. Will Oasis make it open source? Will you share that?
Oh,
knowledge?
will we share it? No, we're not sharing it. The closest way we're sharing it is on that non-human identity threat center, so you'll get the reputation of the actors that we identify, but we've given those names ourselves too. We're just taking the CrowdStrike approach and giving them semi-scary names. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's something really big or bad, maybe like do one-time share things, right?
I mean,
Maybe not.
yeah, maybe. Talk to me in a couple months, let's see what I'm about. Yeah. Great question. Really good insight there. So, let me just take, just a few minutes. Why don't we go into the workflows there, Chris? So, an industry becomes, oh, sorry, I didn't mean workflows. I meant the reports, the compliance reports. So the industry becomes like super sexy, right? Whenever OWASP comes out with, the top 10 threats. And so NHI top 10 came out around February, and go to reports. On the left, yeah, right there, and compliance. And so we do have the PCI DSS. I can talk to both of these real quick. So the PCI DSS, if you adhere or are required to follow PCI, March 31st, PCI added in the NHI requirements. So if you have to adhere to PCI, then you have to deal with NHIs as of March 31st. Ergo, banks really love us talking to us right now. So we have a PCI compliance dashboard of the 4.0 standard, where we've pulled out and we've highlighted each of the NHI requirements that are now included in the PCI standard. And for the NHI top 10, which has a little bit less teeth, but nonetheless scary, is the NHI top 10. So we have a compliance dashboard that alerts you out of the box as to what NHI, which of the top 10 that you could be susceptible to. Basically what these are policies that run across your environment. As soon as these identities are imported or identified in the inventory, if it matches one of these policies, creates an alert, sends you a notification. And if you so choose, you could actually auto remediate all of these. You could just say, hey, let Oasis do it for you. You've given Oasis the permissions. It could decommission the account. It could disable the account, rotate the credential, whatever action you've set up to take on the policy. And so what I like about this is, from the moment that you get it configured, if you turn it on to have Oasis be the automatic remediation, really all you're getting then are, hey, there was this critical alert and we fixed it. Right? And that's all you get are these emails that say, hey, there is a still account, but it's being decommissioned now. So, all that kind of stuff. So they can actually just continue to fix it for you if you so choose. Okay.
Will it also rotate the account that you are using in Oasis for that purpose?
Oh, you guys hear what you just asked? What a great question. So, yes, we create a non-human identity for Oasis. Whenever we connect to Azure, we're creating a service account, we're creating a key, and yes, you can rotate that key. I don't know if it means to do anything. Great question. Let's thinking ahead.
So, do you see only that type of vulnerabilities, or like you see the application development, like you see the
like misconfigurations or something? Yeah. Yes. So we have a number of policies that we ship out of the box. That's what he's showing right here. Most of those are contained in there. So if a developer's made a mistake, we will also see those here. I think maybe we take a moment and talk about that one, exposed to off-boarded employees there.
Yeah, that's one I was.
Yeah, so this is the NHI top 10 number 1. Go over and click on the smaller number there in where it says issues.
Okay.
Oh, you know what? I'm sorry, Chris, let me back up. Let's go down to projects right below it and then click on the Jenny Wilson example there.
All right.
I'll let you up there, click on off-boarded employees, the 3rd column right there. Yep. And then you'll find Jenny Wilson in there. Okay. So this is the most critical. This is the number 1 NHI top 10. And think about this right here. In the non-human, in the human world, you have somebody leave, you go into Okta, you disable their account, poof, there goes all our permissions across the board. You're good, right? Okay, great. So in this example here, Jenny Wilson just got disabled in Okta. But she had access to all of these other secrets in the key vault. She was either the owner, maybe she created it. She was the user of the application, so she had it. She was the one that deployed, Zoom in your environment. And so she has the Zoom, whatever. And so none of these NHIs in any way, shape, or form are connected to her human Okta account. Even though Jenny should know what that secret is, know what that identity was. So we're tracking all of that. And then in here, we're saying, these are all of those secrets that now she's a disgruntled employee. She still has those secrets. How are you now? Now you need to rotate these basically, right? You got to change these or else Jenny's gonna come back in. And there's documented cases. There's one of the largest numbers was an employee left. He still had all of the EC2 keys. And 8 months later, he came back into the company and deleted 10 of the EC2 instances and caused him $80 million in damage. And so it's like, this is the most critical. This one like flags right away. As soon as we get access to data, it's like, boom. And it's such a, I mean, I sell the software, so it's great for me, you know? But like, it's one of those things that just lights up like a Christmas tree in customers' environments. And they're like, oh my gosh, like Jenny was gone for like 3 years. Yeah, exactly. And I guarantee you that all those keys, she probably could log in with right now, right? She'd have access to those systems. So something to think about there. It's a super critical thing. And it just, yeah, this happens all the time.
So I want to just fix them.
Yeah, so it actually showed he's going next level here because we can bulk rotate everything. So he can fix all 9 of these occurrences in what we call one click.
Jenny's trying to log in right now. She's like, no.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So that just goes out and that just auto rotated all 9 of those credentials. And you could take it a step further by just having us do it right away instead of even having to click. And you could just do it for you, but you know, not too many customers trust us that much yet. So I like this here, and just to kind of touch on this, because I think this is the next iteration of how you handle this. So like in this environment here, we have 5,000 identities. What a project is it takes all of those similar alerts and gives you one alert. So the owner for this would get an alert that says, hey, we just created a new project, which is a sum of all of these alerts that you need to take action on. So it allows you to come in and very quickly filter through anything else. And so the user who's responsible for those identities will only see his alerts. That's pretty big. That makes it a lot more consumable. Great questions, guys. Really appreciate all the interaction.
How is this priced? Like based on environment size, how many connections you have?
Yeah, the most part is it's NHIs, so the number of identities that you have. And we obviously we keep it up tally that for you. We see how many we're managing.
Of course you
Yeah. So we always thought that when we were pricing this, we were like, aren't you like solving it? Like you're gonna shrink? Like no. Yeah. People are like doubling their NHI count like by the month almost. Yeah. So it's like, yeah, it's growing astronomically, and it's just why you might have 10 employees, and each employee has like 100 NHIs that they work on. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.